My earliest memory of using unusual and found materials in my work was after a picnic I had with my grandmother when I was very young. When we were done eating, we used all of the picnic remains, the straws, the napkins, bits of food, and we made a doll. I was enchanted and fascinated. The transformation was like magic. In recent years, my most significant exploration of materials took flight with a year-long project I called the 52 Box Project. Each week for a year, I filled a shadow box with a work of art that utilized a different fiber material or fiber technique. It was a year of exploration. Here are some of the boxes I created over the course of that year. On the top left, a box created with materials from the hardware store. Top right, I used recycled sari silk. Bottom left, the leather remains from a factory making photo albums. And on the bottom right, I used acorns, which I found on walks in the woods. I was energized by my year of discovery. So many of the boxes from this year-long project informed future work. In particular, these two boxes led to substantial bodies of work. The top one is a sculpture made of Q-tips, and the bottom is a sculpture made from cotton twill tape. Both very ordinary materials. These next three slides will give you a look at some of my Q-tip sculptures. This first one is called A Rift is Just a Chance to Grow. I made it as I prepared for a bucket list trip to Patagonia. I was inspired by the forces of nature and great expanses of white. Here we have a triptych, Mass, Star, and Wave. Many people have seen the influence of the ocean in these pieces, and that's very likely because I spent my childhood summers by the beach in Rhode Island, and I currently live near the water in Connecticut. This final Q-tip piece, recently finished, is called A Message for Those Who Will Listen. It grew out of my concern for the changing climate on Earth. How long do these Q-tip pieces take to make, and how many Q-tips do I use in each piece? Well, they take a long time, and I use thousands and thousands of Q-tips. If you ever need to find the best price on Q-tips, please ask me. Here we have the cotton twill tape. I purchase it in big rolls, as you can see, and before I begin a project, I make many components that will make up the final piece. I do not draw or pre-plan the work, but it evolves as I go. This first piece I call Singular Stories from a Sizable Spool. Back to the boxes. I challenged myself to find as many ways to use this material as I could by folding, tearing, shredding, sewing, braiding, you named it. I am constantly adding to this series as new ideas come to me. Here is a piece I call Yet Still a Proud Voice. It is one from a sub-series of twill tape pieces that I call my Fragments series. They reference architectural fragments and celebrate resilience in the face of destruction. In much of my work, I honor the perfection in imperfection. Here we have Cherish the Gift, in which I have added makeup pads to the twill tape. Our coral reefs are dying, and this piece honors their beauty and offers a prayer for their survival. As is the case in so much of my work, nature is a significant muse in what I do. And for a final look at the twill tape work, I've included an installation shot from one of my shows. On the left, we have Holding On to Hope with its theme of transition and hope. And on the right, we have Artifact, another piece which offers reflection on the passage of time. Before moving on to look at the work of some other artists who are using unusual materials and whose work I admire, I wanted to show you a grouping of work that grew out of the 52 boxes literally by accident. The top box here is entirely embroidered in my favorite stitch, the French knot. On the bottom is a close look of another French knotted piece I created at a later date, and I'll tell you how that came about. This piece, shown here as a completed work in my home, was created when I broke my ankle and needed to be non-weight bearing for 3 months. After several days of despair, I picked up the nearest piece of fabric to me, which was an ace bandage, and I started stitching French knots. 3 months later, the piece, which I call Diary of a Break, was complete. As my ankle and my mobility improved, I continued to work with ace bandages. I realized they could serve as a wonderful material for all sorts of sculptural work. I still have a case of ace bandages here in the studio, which I will return to, hopefully under different circumstances. I am a great fan of other artists who use unusual materials in their work. Here's a piece by Jennifer Coyne-Cadine that is made from used tea bags that Jennifer has printed with one of her photographs. She calls it the Red Boat. Since Jennifer's a friend of mine, I collect tea bags on my kitchen counter for her and pass them on to her every time I see her. Here is a fascinating and compelling piece by artist Jung Yoon. Believe it or not, this artist makes her exquisite ethereal pieces out of her own hair. I can't even begin to imagine how she does that or what made her decide to do this to begin with. Truly amazing. Here's a piece created by Beth Barron, which from a distance looks like a traditional quilt. When you get close up, however, you see that Beth has created her piece with used bandages meticulously placed in a large mandala. This piece certainly has you looking and thinking. The final artist I will show you today is Wendy Wall, who recycles used encyclopedias, a plentiful commodity in this Wikipedia world, creating both large-scale installation pieces and more intimate work for the wall. The 4 artists I have shown you today just scratch the surface of those fiber-based artists who use unusual materials for their work. As far as what material is next on my agenda, the options are abundant. I collect interesting materials as I see them, and I put them aside until inspiration hits. Here are some wood shavings from my husband's wood shop, just one of my many stomping grounds. They sure are beautiful, aren't they?